our school, to identify gaps for improving the leadership mechanism of the school, and to provide certain principles and insights for improvement. So maybe this can also be applicable in other universities or schools around the world, wherein, of course, we are not only focusing ourselves as teachers, but likewise, we are also asking the help of the community to make our activities, programs, and projects be successful. Okay, so let's go to the background. So the fundamental argument of this paper is, of course, lies on the constructivist education, which is, of course, in the context of the Philippine education. So it is interpretatively structured into a distributive type of academic leadership, wherein, of course, leadership is primarily decentralized yet collaboratively distributed among primary and secondary stakeholders. So hence this study is advancing a principle of distributive leadership through stakeholder mobilization. So it will not only the primary role of the leader to do all the things, to make all the activities possible. So it is notable that leadership is a distributive effort to increase the collaboration and teamwork of every stakeholders and other individuals in a particular program, project, or activity. Moreover, it is not only the cooperative effort of the primary proponents or the teachers or the leaders that is important. Likewise, it is important to acquire also the cooperation of the external stakeholders. External stakeholders, we can consider them as part of the community where the school belong. Okay, so the external stakeholders for more collaborative activity will be possible with the help and cooperation of this, what we call external stakeholders. Okay, moving on. So distributed leadership, of course, for learning emphasizes the following: leading for learning, which is our 5 areas of actions, meaning these are the important areas that we need to consider to make up productive and, of course, cooperative external stakeholders and a collaborative effort from every stakeholders, whether internal or external. The first one, of course, is establishing a focus on learning. So by persistently and publicly focusing their own attention and that others on learning and teaching. Okay, so we will be able to at least engage into a more productive and more successful activity, programs, and projects as we go on with the different activities that we are focusing in our school. And then we need to build professional communities that prioritize the importance of learning. This is by fostering, of course, work. It is not only a matter of learning by ourselves, which are educators, but of course, we all know that education where we live or where we belong. Next is, of course, appealing external environments which will affect learning. So, of course, relationship that can. So we all know that we have so many groups, or of course, non-governmental organizations. We have the alumni associations to provide this active learning on the learning of our students. We can consider it as a lifelong learning or what we call a realistic learning environment, because this is the real word for learning. Then, of course, performing strategically and sharing governance. By organizing effort along, of course, several pathways that directs the student, professional, or process of learning, and by dispensing leadership in all levels and among individuals in the different positions. So again, as I've said, collaborative or distributive leadership is not a matter of having the leader doing all the part or doing all the activities, or teachers doing all part or doing all the actions, but rather we need to have a cooperation among our other stakeholders aside from the internal, which are, of course, the leaders, the teachers, the students. We can also consider tapping or reorganizing activities that will involve our external stakeholders, is like, of course, the community where we live, where we continue to have communication with. And then lastly is fostering unity by, of course, directing student, other professionals, and process learning with learning objectives. So we will be able to foster unity among the different stakeholders to make, of course, the PPAs or the programs, projects, and activities be successful in, of course, undertaking this or implementing this kind of activities that will involve the learning community or the learning environment of our students. Next is, of course, these are the analysis of gaps for leadership mechanism improvement, which I was able to, of course, realize as I go on with the activities that I had, or as I continue this research work. The first one is, of course, delay of communication. So in most cases, informations are being overlooked due to unclear duties and responsibilities of key personnel, which are identified to provide these communications or information to academic stakeholders that need to be informed. So relevant issues are not addressed because these are not properly or included. So performance of duties and responsibilities of academic stakeholders are affected, as well as the performance of the school in terms of document submission or compliance with particular memorandum. These are being overlooked. So sometimes, instead of submitting them delayed or overdue because the communication was not per authority who will do the, of course, submission or preparing the report. The next one is, of course, misinterpretation of information. Information dissemination is another key factor in improving and developing a harmonious relationship within the academic stakeholders and superiors. So the information being disseminated are sometimes there's no specific protocol of whom will be the proper authority to do the dissemination that leads to misinterpretation or mislead the stakeholders of what to follow or whom to follow. So there will be a specific protocol on, of course, dissemination of information. Academic stakeholders will be able to properly do their duties and responsibilities assigned to them the environment. Next is leader. How can they be? He was proven to be an effective and efficient leader. Rotation of duties and responsibilities as leaders will not only the leader, but they continue. So this is the leadership framework which I prepared. So this leadership or distributive leadership framework includes leadership, of course, on how they will work together using a monitoring, of course, monitoring projects and activities. So we need to determine and define, of course, the duties and responsibilities intended for a prepared leader. More so, we need to define how those leaders are deployed, okay, teachers. And lastly, we need to design a monitoring mechanism to verify, of course, the success of the program implementation of the programs, projects, and the PPAs, or the PPAs that we call, okay? So duties and responsibilities must be determined and to define to be able to identify a candidate or an individual ready to assume such responsibility or obligation. This will be done by preparing a checklist of possible characteristics, most leader to be able to pick the right person for a specific program, and that will also result to success. It will mean that everything will go smoothly as planned. And then define how these leaders are deployed to support teams of teams, defining the specific rules of the success of every programs and projects to be implemented. In this manner, the SWOT analysis can be integrated in the process. Okay. Next, of course, here are some of the insights. So there must be leadership coaching. So while evaluating, of course, this is of course, assess and evaluate the effective start by method. So, of course, these are very important. So, so that is the monitoring and evaluating. And while in the leadership coaching, of course, leaders are born having all the qualities of a good leaders, but some are made. So leadership preparation is cooperative. So individualized rapport between a leader and a coach is very important. And then the third one is, of course, equal opportunity to be leaders. So opportunity only next one. So if given the chance or the opportunity, grab it and make the most out of it. But not all are given the opportunity or chance to show their abilities, skills, and talents. So all members of the team or the group should be given the opportunity to grow as, of course, future leader. And then, of course, learn something, and everyone is capable of contributing something. This should be clear to all on the group in order to remind them of this reality. And then, of course, there should be what we call know the direction and share the vision. People know where they are going, how they get there is not important anymore. Allow your teachers to create their own leadership plans, but make sure often that you know and know where they are landing or having. And then, of course, the last. So most of the time, this is sometimes being taken for granted, but of course this is important. Democracy doesn't mean decision is affected by the voices of your subordinates or our subordinates, but it does mean that everyone gives input and all input is valuable. Have I consulted from everyone? Have you asked yourself with this question? If not, find a way, of course, to get more voices or finding out why subordinates aren't talking. Okay. Continue. So, of course, if we do this, of course, everything will be fine. Everything will be part of the insights. Allow autonomy. So, of course, to build autonomy and empower your team, that means autonomy done well is properly and thoroughly thought out, planned, and continued by the structured process. And of course, leadership responsibilities must be distributed evenly. Okay. So next is entrust decision or entrust decision making. So decision making is also the teachers are tasked a duty none of considered slightly. So educators and teachers are anticipated to protect, to teach, and to trust them with the same, of course, the check, assess, and evaluate. So a big part of distributing leadership means checking in, assessing, and evaluating. As part of the learning process, We do this naturally with students, but often forget to do with the growth can happen often and with all kind of discerning eye on supervision and of course the success of every programs and activities. Next is of course develop and improve skill, talent, and willingness. So teachers are privileged to have a unique skills and talent. Support people on your team and find their passion and be able to make their own mark. Give training opportunities to make all of us have done, which boosts our morale to do better and continue doing more. So that is very important to recognize every achievement, whether it's big or small. So it is just a tap on the shoulder or something that will make your subordinates feel that they belong, okay, or that means they are important, they are part of the process, okay, not just letting them do hard chores, doing things for others. Okay, so here next is providing the means that we need to provide in our school so that we can have a successful education.